All right. Welcome to episode 90 of Seize the Moment podcast. And today we have a very special guest. We have Mohamedou Ould Slahi. Is a Mauritanian man who was detained at Guantánamo Bay detention camp without charge from 2002 until his release on October 17, 2016. Slahi wrote a memoir in 2005 while imprisoned, which the US government declassified in 2012. His memoir, titled The Guantanamo Diary, was later published in 2015, and the new movie, The Mauritanian, which is out now, is based on the events of that time, his memoir, and his experience. Welcome, Mohamedou.
Thank you for having me in Seize the Moment, and I'm so happy to talk to you today.
Thank you so much for coming on, Mohamedou. And we want to first say, before we even get into the questions, what an honor it is to meet you and speak with you. Your experience is quite possibly one of the most amazing and sort of tragic things we've ever heard.
Thank you so much. And I really don't know how to judge that because I only know mine.
Yeah. And so, Mohamedou, our first question is going to be, who were you before you became, the kind of quote unquote Mauritanian? Who was Mohamedou before all of this happened?
So, I was born in the south of the country, 1970, to a very poor family. My father is a camel holder, and my mother stayed at home, as per traditional rule. And so after successive, years of droughts, we lost almost all of our camels and other animals that we had. And we moved to the vicinity of the city of Rosso. And I remember in my childhood, I could remember this day, when I went to school, after p.m., 2 p.m., and I was without shoes, and I remember going from one structure to the next to cool down my feet. And I remember our neighbor who was doing much better than us. They just come for vacation. She called me and she scolded me why I didn't, put on my shoes, assuming that I had shoes, but I didn't have shoes because we were too poor to buy shoes. And I was standing in front of her, listening to her very long, painful lecture, while my feet were pinned to the ground. And I was just waiting on her to finish. And then I pretended I'm going back to collect my shoes. But instead, I back and wouldn't meet anyone to scold me for not having my feet. My father died when I finished third grade, and we moved to Nouakchott. When I finished high school, I won a scholarship. Everything to me was school. I loved school, even though my parents didn't care so much. They never asked me whether I passed or not. They never asked me what my grades were. They never talked to any of my teachers. It was like a secret life of mine, and I won this scholarship, very prestigious Germany, and I went there, studied, and I did what my contemporary did, like going to demonstrations for Palestine and Afghanistan, just hoping for better lives in our part of the world. So when I was very young, it was very sexy to go to Afghanistan, visit Afghanistan. And this is not a Muslim thing, like a lot of German young people, they went there, French people. And it was like sanctioned by the government and by the United States of America, by the way. I went there, I didn't like it. My whole time in Afghanistan was like between 2 or 5 months. I went twice. And I went back, resumed my life. But a very fateful phone call I received from my cousin, who then lived in Sudan in early 99 or late 98. I received this phone call from my cousin, and he wanted me to help him. It was like just like a family. He wanted to help his father, and he wanted me to help him wire some money to his father, which I did. What I didn't know that there were other people listening to this call, i.e., the United States of America, intelligence service. They were listening to it because the line belonged to the late Osama bin Laden, and my cousin was a friend of Osama bin Laden. There was nothing to the call. Like, obviously, I wouldn't there was anything to the call. So, but it was enough to destroy my life. So they put one and one together, said, this guy is a bad guy. He knows bad people. And my life went downhill from that.
Right. And it seemed like it was guilty by association without any particular evidence. And so can you take us back to the time where you initially were taken? Yeah, can you take us initially back to the time where you were taken into custody and you were detained? And what was your thinking there? Did you actually believe that they were going to detain you for a long period of time? Or did you think, oh, well, this is all going to kind of get figured out and, eventually I would be taken home?
So, no, I never believed. I wouldn't have turned myself in, obviously, because I turned myself in. Every time the police asked me to turn myself in, I told them. Because I know deep in my heart that I didn't do anything. Why should I run away from the police? Right. And this is like horrible situation. Like, when you in a situation where you didn't do anything, and you are scared that that you are. This is very. But I always believe, like the worst thing that could happen to me that they tell me not to leave my country, and I made my peace with that. I was working. I was like trying to make the ends meet. Working like sometimes 7 days of the week. And I told myself in every time, but that time after 9/11, I did not appreciate the two things: the anger of many Americans. I'm saying now people and the government. And the second thing, I didn't appreciate how far the United States was ready to go outside the law, and in this region, I was not aware of that. Into the country, I never visited the country, I never applied to visit the country. So this is all crazy. So I'm like thousands of miles away from the United States, but I'm subjected to the law of the United States of America, but not in a good way, because I cannot benefit from it. I can only be injured, with the law of the United States of America. So I didn't know any of that. I just thought, if you didn't do anything, you should be afraid of anything. That was my philosophy. That's why I went to the police. I told myself, and every time they asked me.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of like what you would think as, just us being American citizens. We would think, if I'm not responsible for whatever the crime is, why wouldn't I turn myself in? I have really nothing to hide. Yes. Right. And the and the interesting and terrible thing about your story was that essentially when you turned yourself in, somewhere down the line, you find out that sort of federal laws that apply to citizens, right, don't necessarily actually apply to people that are foreigners, right? People kind of on the other side of the world, if it pertains to, I guess, American safety or American kind of the sense of danger. And so when was it that you actually kind of discovered that for you, the laws actually weren't going to help you?
So, this is like very complicated. Like it's even for lawyers, they don't understand why this notion that some human beings are not worthy of within the law, and some human beings are worthy of being treated within the rule of law. And this is like, because this is a fascist idea. We start with fascism and Nazism, that some people are superior to other people. And it crossed my mind. I would say, okay, because you were born in Africa, which was not my mistake. I didn't decide to be born in Africa. You don't deserve to go to court. We can decide single-handedly that you're guilty, and we don't need like a court. We don't need investigation. We don't need like a jury. So some intelligence agency plays judge, jury, and prosecution in the same person. I never crossed my mind, because when I grew up, I watched Married with Children, and watched
Ally McBeal.
Law and Order. Yeah, I know. And I watched Law and Order. And that was my image from America. America is funny and there is a law. I think they had this obsession, like some American agents, they have an obsession with dictatorships. It's like we did the big mistake that we became a democracy. That's why it's making them vulnerable. That's what they really believe, because they told me that. So they think like, oh, look at those badass in the Middle East. If they see like a terrorist, quote unquote, and a terrorist is a very loaded word, because it's political, it's not criminal term, because you can, in the United States, if you watch the news, in the last days of Trump, Houthi was a terrorist. In the first days of Biden, there were no more terrorist groups. This is politics. And like, you cannot change a murder, because a murder is a murder. If you kill someone willingly, that's murder, and outside the law, of course. And terrorism. So they say if this is terrorist, they take them without court. And this is so like chilling, because so many, on many levels. So first, people in this part of the world, they look up to the United States and Western Europe for the rule of law and the respect of law. And two, dictatorships are not safe. People are in dictatorships. This like fantasy that some CIA people and FBI people have, that if you don't wear the gloves and if you go down and dirty, that's not good for you. It's not for to make America safer, because what make America safer is those gloves and those restrictions that put on law enforcement agencies. That's why countries ruled by law are more prosperous, are safer, they are more humane, and dictatorships are neither safe, neither prosperous, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I know, Alan, for you, it was kind of like sort of a shock watching the movie, right? To even sort of consider that the government could do something like that.
Just the cruelty, right? The cruelty of the soldiers, right? In the midst of interrogating, it's as if, like, how do they know that when you're giving your testimony that you're not telling the truth, right? They don't. Here's the thing, like, if you're they're not obviously being rational, logical thinking people, of course, because they're obviously they're abusing their power. They want to hear a specific answer, right? And they're just looking for, they think that anything you say is not true unless they get it from you in the most cruelest possible way. Then they think that what they're getting is truth, and it's just insane to me that we have people who are that, I don't know what the word is, not animalistic, like so savage, like on one level you would think you want, if you have somebody who's fighting on your side, you want somebody who can be a beast, You know, you want somebody who's an incredible fighter, and sometimes like, okay, there's probably a use for this kind of person, maybe in the battlefield, right? But in an interrogation room, or to just try to suss out truth from somebody, right? Like that kind of a person, that kind of mentality, it's insane what they got away with doing, you know? And I'm speaking of this just from watching the movie, but there's no, even if I think I have a concept of what happened, I don't obviously have a concept. Like, you having been there and having experienced for yourself what goes on over there, this is the realest, you know, story you can get of it. Somebody who's watching it, they think they have some conception of like, oh, torture, oh, it's bad, you know, and you feel bad, you know, you're watching the movie, you're reading the book, right? And yeah, that's good that you have empathy, but anyone who's reading and seeing this stuff, they don't understand the real reality of what went on over there.
Yeah. And Mohamedou, what would you want people to understand about what life is like in Guantanamo Bay?
What raised before, I think this is like psychology 101, the crowd mentality, that has nothing to do like with your religion or your background or your, you know, the color of your skin. You know, unfortunately, we human beings, we tend to do like horrific stuff when the right set of circumstances are present. And we've seen this throughout history, you know, like in the like national, like in the Nazis, they did it. Nazis are not like coming from another planet. They are like, just like regular German, good Christian, you know? And like in Vietnam, you know what they did to like children and the elderly and so, those are like good people. So, and the other thing is torture is slippery slope, you know, because the government of the United States of America allowed torture, and they wrote, and they wanted to do it in I'm getting disgusted even saying this, in a safe way, just to inflict like controlled pain on you. And they have doctors, they have psychologists, you know, who are like, who went to school and who learn do no harm, and who learn that they should use their profession to help people, not to harm them, because there is no way for a psychotherapist to know whether I'm a good guy or a bad guy. It's not, you know, because it's a very long process to decide, you know, but just he come and assume a bad guy, start to use. So he said, we can do this in controlled manner. So I spoke to Ranika, one of the torture team, you know, because I saw that she was normal human being. I told her, you are going to kill me. You don't know how much I can take, because they put me in this very cold room and they didn't give me anything, you know, and I had so much pain, sciatic nerve, and they stopped my medication. I used from a hypotension, and I had very critical medication, and I had also sciatic nerve. They stopped it. They said, you cooperate to give you the medication, you know. And I was doing bad. I told her, you are going to kill me. She said, no, we control everything. I said, you don't know how much I can take. You don't know that. And she said, yes, we know. And she know, in a very similar room, they called the room, because they didn't know how much he can take. And you know, like this, and I could see the guard, they like very, it's like, you know, it's very easy for me to say, oh, those people are bad people because they're not Muslim. Or for an American person to say, oh, this guy is a Muslim, that's why he's bad. You know, it's very easy to explain. But I don't buy into those things. But what I could say that I've seen this in Muslims, and I've seen it in like American soldiers who are by and large Muslims, you know. Like they used to come to say, no sleep for terrorists. I mean, who told you that I was terrorist? How did you get that information? And what is it? And they just keep you just like, you know, awake. And they have like their own like justification, I guess. Like they say, he's a bad guy. They told us he killed people and so. And so either you have to be a philosopher, like very smart person, in order to say, I don't want anything to do with this. Or you are going to be a part of this and it's going to take you down very slowly, you know.
Yeah.
And you're going to do everything. Because the recipe that Donald Trump and his advisor and his doctors put, it's not like working for everyone. The only thing that broke me was when they said they are going to take my mother away. So threatening my mother, you know. And they're going to rape her. They insinuated they put her on. And like, so they have like to improv. You know, they have to improv because the door is open. You know, like what they call it, this Pandora box.
Right.
Torture is a Pandora box. And we always need to understand that democracy works, you know, and dictatorship doesn't work. It's frustrating, you know, like frustrating. FBI thought I was a bad guy, and they were obsessed with me as a bad guy. Now we know that they're wrong. We know because we have record, we have black on white written since at least 2000. The United States government found out that I was not responsible. Just the other day, I think his name is Duffy, FBI agent, was investigating my role in Millennium Plan. That he bought his ticket and went to Guantanamo Bay and said, this guy has nothing to do with the Millennium Plan. But if you want to pin something on him, do it, but don't ask me again about Millennium Plan. He was so frustrated with this obsession. So we know that if you are a cop, you know, have an obligation to protect the people in a democracy. And it's I think that you're a bad guy and I have no evidence. That's okay. But what is not okay is to torture me and to punish me as if it's a foregone conclusion and as if I'm already a criminal. It's not up to you to decide about my guilt. It's
Right.
only by a court of law. And
Yeah. And can you tell us about meeting Nancy Hollander and how did that sort of come about and how did you two end up working together?
yes, you know, I was so, you know, like when we came to Guantánamo Bay, you know, like I was so happy because now I'm among the Nazi American. I didn't know back then the greatest country in the world, but I learned later. On you guys supposed to be the greatest country in the world, at least according to the character of Will Ferrell. You know. One second. So, and then they came to me one day, I think in 2000, early 2004, or they told me I was designated the enemy, I think enemy combatant. That's what they said. You know, I didn't know anything about the world. I was in the dark, you know. I went through torture, like 70 days, no sleep. I was sexually assaulted 3 times. You know, I was beaten. They broke my ribs. This is on record. Everything I'm telling you is on record, you know. And I was being like normal human being. They said, you are designated the enemy combatant of the United States. So the sentence, I was like, I didn't know what I said, but I was like, I'm not the enemy. You know, this is so hard that someone comes to you and said, you are the enemy of anything, especially if you are not the enemy. If you know you are not the enemy, you didn't do anything. You know, just like gladiator, you know, they drag you into the field. They say, you need to fight to death. But you may say, I don't want to fight. Why you drag me to the, you know, arena? And I didn't know what to say. So this is you. I am the enemy of the United States. I saw for the last 2 years that has no respect for anything, you know, resembling the rule of law, at least when regards. And this was really scary. And then later on, I don't receive any news. What I receive, what my interrogators tell me. That's the news. They came to me, they said, I was going to receive my lawyer. And I was so happy. That was mid-2005, almost 4 years. So, and I want to advise you and your listeners, please, when the police arrest you, try to get a lawyer before 4 years. You know, because it's a very bad advice to spend 4 years or 3.5 years in prison and ask for a lawyer. So I didn't ask for a lawyer. Of course, I was like, my family fought all those years. And when I received I saw my window, because I started to write my diaries in 2000, I think 2003. It was taken away from me. And then I saw now lawyers. This is America. This is the real deal. Like underdog, you know, David versus Goliath, you know, a small lawyer against the most powerful country in the world. And she wins because this is America. Everybody has a chance, you know. And I start writing, and I think I wrote 160 pages, I believe so.
Wow.
And then I gave to her. When we met, I was so happy and so. And I was surprised that she knew about me. You know, to her, like, you know, this is like a guy. I mean, the government does judge people. There must be some reason, you know. And she was okay. So, and then I was so happy. And then she told me to keep this writing. And then after 3 months, I wrote her everything. 2005, September 2005, I wrote everything. Government said nothing will be, you know, public. They stifled, they fought tooth and nail for like almost 8 years until they allowed a very heavily redacted version of my book. This is like horrible. This is like you are a witness on your own behalf. And they say you cannot say anything because the narrative, you know, is holy. You know, to the United States of America, they told their people, they lied to them. We have you need to go to work to feel safe. And to go to the 4th of July, and you can, if you want to smoke weed, you can go to California, no problem. We have the bad guys. And the bad guys was I. So I have to be like sacrificed for like, you know, wrongfully sacrificed. And we know now this was all lie and fake. Not one single person, to my knowledge, was successfully, you know, successfully prosecuted. You know, they made some prosecution, but they were turned, you know, over because they were like fake. And so they didn't want this narrative that the American government had around many Africa, the Middle East. They cannot, even they are afraid of me, because they could say this is a liar, he's a terrorist, he's a bad guy, he's a liar. We have the facts, you know, but they don't have any facts, you know. They don't have anything as a matter of fact. And you know, they say in German, wenn das Militär sich bewegt, bleibt die Wahrheit auf der Strecke. Meaning that in war, truth cannot keep up with the pace of the soldiers, you know? And because truth just cannot keep up, because the military needs to, you know, and I mean the military, the war machine, they need a narrative. We are the good guys. We're fighting bad guys. That's like in the movies,
right?
You know? And yes, that's why it's so long.
Yeah. And it's sort of, it's the American way to kind of put things into a very black and white perspective and narrative where you see kind of good guys versus bad guys. I mean, now it's sort of like when, you know, you go back to like the Cold War, right? Where we used to say, well, Russia was the evil empire. There's this really good documentary called The Man Who Saved the World about Stanislav Petrov, who ended up actually taking us kind of from the brink of nuclear war. And so for Stanislav, when he went to America and he met like Kevin Costner and a bunch of other actors, he said, this is all idiotic. He said, we are not enemies. We're actually the exact same. He's like, in the way that you think of yourself as wanting to protect yourselves, he's like, we're actually doing the same thing in Moscow. He's like, this is all sort of idiocy. But in our narrative, it was, no, Russia is sort of evil. They're the evil empire. And now when you kind of see the nuance, right, and you kind of see the fact that we're all kind of trying to protect ourselves, really, it makes it so crazy that we're so willing to destroy ourselves or destroy each other and then destroy ourselves in the midst of that.
Yeah, it's incredibly complicated, right? I mean, I get the necessity of crafting a narrative. It's so this way you could take advantage of tribe mentality, right? So this way you can get enough people, you know, the masses on your team. This way you know, you can do whatever it is your purpose is, right? And even if you know how it works, it's insane that the American people or anyone listening to the podcast all over the world, right, knows or didn't know the kind of cruelty that was happening there at Guantanamo. It's not even just Guantanamo. There's other places like Guantanamo, right? There are other
yes,
acts. Right. And
yes, in the Middle East and in Africa, yes, absolutely. And you know the worst thing that, you know, that people cannot talk about this anymore, because when the leader of the free world is doing this so every dictator is so happy for Guantanamo, because the United States of America cannot say this with straight face, cannot say you have to respect the rule of law. You know, I remember vividly I was in Guantanamo Bay. In my cell, I was in Camp 5.
Right.
And I don't know how I heard it, like, I don't know whether it's one of the guards was playing the TV from afar or something. I heard Hillary Clinton, you know, talking, you know, ostensibly about saving a writer. I think his name is Huawei. He was a Chinese dissident who was, he was blind and he was put in prison. You know, this is horrible, you know. And he was like, he was free and back then, Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, she stood ostensibly saying that China must respect the law and must abide by the rule of law and not arrest people outside the rule of law.
Right.
I was listening, I said, are you fucking kidding me? Is this real or am I like dreaming?
Right.
Why don't you look at Guantanamo Bay, what you're doing to people? I mean, and it's just easy. I could imagine she comes back and said, but you are a bad guy. And I would come back and say, but China think this guy is a bad guy.
Right.
So it's neither for you or China to decide who's the bad guy. Because the bad guy is decided in the independent court of law, independent court of law with very clean procedure. You know, and you stole philosophy. The tool of power, the tool of power have to be like more aggressive, more inhumane, the more territory you want to control. The United States of America, for better or worse, is resembling an empire.
Right.
Only an empire can kidnap people from outside its borders and put them in prison. Only an empire can do that. And America after 9/11 said, the whole planet is game. We can go anywhere we want. That's an empire, the most powerful empire. And we know that in the Declaration of Independence, one of the points that were raised by the colony that they say, we want this because you treat our citizens back of the British Isles in Europe, and you put them on trial because they will always lose because no one knows them, And I always saying this: if you try me in the United States, 100% I'm going to get whatever you want to get because I have no peers in the United States. I'm not an American citizen. I have no address. I have no friends. Nobody from that jury could relate to anything I do or I represent.
Right.
But not one jury, not one person in Mauritania would condemn me ever because they can relate to everything. What did he do? And they know, okay, he was in this mosque. He met this guy, but I was also in that mosque. I didn't do anything,
Right.
And so.
Right. And it's so interesting because in America, guilt by association is actually one of the worst ways to find somebody guilty. So it's quite interesting that in a time of war, especially as it relates to a foreigner, right? Somebody kind of like a foreign national, somebody who's outside of, our territory, we're like, oh, okay, guilt by association works here. We can't use that with our people, but it actually works with everybody else across the world. That's just how life is. We don't need the proof that we would need, let's say, for an American citizen.
Yes. And again, this is like fascism.
Yeah.
But fascism is not good for America. It's not good because it's okay. If you accept it, because I look like the wanted FBI list, okay, that's fine with me. But if you accept that certain human beings could be treated outside the law, you are like implicitly, you are putting yourself there. At least it could be done with you in Mauritania if you leave the United States of America. And we now know that this was only the precursor to violate the rights of American people. And everybody knows that the rights, the civil liberties suffered a lot. And ironically, George W. Bush said after 9/11 that Al-Qaeda, he said, attacked the United States because of what the United States represent, the lifestyle. And I understood democracy and human rights and rule of law. And they will never defeat us. The first thing that the United States did, they did away with the rule of law when it comes to so-called terror suspects. Right. And that was the biggest win that extremists achieved with fighting.
Yeah.
Did you find that like there were any people at Guantanamo who weren't, I don't know how to put this, like who weren't so sadistic and severe? Did you encounter anyone who was at least had some kind of moral code, or was it just that everyone just kept getting that same narrative of like, no, this is the bad guy, and that they kept rationalizing that you were the bad guy based on just hearing it from their superiors, right? It's like every soldier is probably on a need to know basis. Not everyone has access to all the facts, right? So I'm sure there are a lot of people who are just like told this is the bad guy, so just then they treat you as such. But was anyone there who was actually somewhat, if not sympathetic, at least normal to you, treated you humanely at least?
So first, it's very easy to vilify the other,
Right.
Because I know this, because this is like universal, because the other doesn't look like you, doesn't talk like you, doesn't eat like you. So he's different. That's a bad sign to be different, And so the other thing, like, so like you have like already the story is complete to the guards, the people who treat you, that you are a bad guy, and you look like, I look like a bad guy in the narrative. I look, in every respect, I look like a bad guy. Like one day this FBI agent looked at me. His name is Robert Sagler. He told me, "You look like a dog, you bark like a dog, something like that. You must be a dog." I was like, wow, what kind of logic is that? And I must confess, I'm very defiant. I used to be very defiant, like, because as you can tell from like the way I speak, and so that I'm educated and I do understand like the rule of law, because I lived in Germany for a very long time. And to this day, he keeps telling people, if you interview him, I tell you his name and I can talk to someone who can connect you with him.
Okay.
Said, I told him my story. I was like, fuck, I don't have to tell you anything. I don't owe you to tell you my story. I don't owe to you where I ate, who my first girlfriend or my first wife. I don't owe to tell you any of that. You owe me to tell me why you kidnapped me and arrested me. You have to tell me that. And I kept like this line. And then when they tortured me, I was completely broken. I said, no more, I tell you everything you want, including lying to please you. But I also was very clear. I told him, if you torture me, you will talk to someone who is not me. You will talk to someone else. That you have to understand. Me, I'm not talking to you because you kidnapped me, and you have to tell me why you arrested me. If we don't like cross this bridge, I will not talk to you in any shape. And this was like very ballsy, to be honest, because there were no lawyers. And he kept telling Mohamedou, the rules have changed. No more lawyer, no more like, this is all like without filter. And so a lot of the guards, when they stay with us, because we say, there is a saying in Egypt, they say, lice have very short legs. So they cannot go very far, meaning. So, and when the guards start like socializing with me and talking to me, and they start reading, because, they have some access to information. They start, okay, what's going on? Why did they take this guy, and then some of them like became my friend. They bring me food illegally and bring me like movies illegally and bring me like books. And so not all of them. One thing I observed, and I'm not a psychologist, human beings don't like to torture other human beings unless you are a very sick person. And yeah. And so to answer your question, what my observation, Americans by and large are good people, generous people, very humane people, and they love to be good people. You know, they love to be seen as such.
Right.
You know, they don't like to be bad people.
Yeah. And then, so Mohamedou, I would also want to ask, I mean, I think this is probably going to be, if not like, let's say the most important, one of our most important questions. What was it that helped you get through those 14 years? How did you do it?
But
So
can
what
you
was it?
repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So what was it that was helpful for you in those 14 years? How did you get through it in terms of how you thought about things, how you thought about life, your faith in Islam?
So I really don't know the answer to this question. So, but I can tell you a couple of observations. First, all survivors are very strong because they did survive.
Right.
Mohammed Gul did not survive. You know, some of the 9/11 like defendants are vegetable, they kaput. You know, some of the other detainees like Al-Qahtani, I know that he is completely kaput. Same time, 63, ISN 63, you can research. And I know he's loyal. And he lost his mind during torture completely. He wasn't 100% healthy before torture, but torture completed him, finished him off. So as to what, so, you know, like faith evolves on personal level and evolves on societal level and evolves on historical level, evolves on all levels, all possible levels.
Right.
Christians in America are not like Christians in Germany. In the Netherlands are nothing like the Southern Baptists in the United States of America. Muslim, Shia, Sunni, and all the others are completely different. So when I was a child, my mother taught me that if you good things come to your way. If you do bad things come to you. And you go to heaven if you do things, you go to hell if you do bad things. But Guantánamo Bay shook my belief to the core. Because the equation was not you do good thing. قول له ما تعطيني كافي، قول له ما تعطيني كافي، قول له كافي كوفي، قول له ما تعطيني كوفي. اسمع ماما كوفي قولها. So this is like, you know, it's like was a change, you know, like in my so and then either I have to completely like lose completely faith, but I did not lose faith. I just like adjusted that maybe my understanding was not the right thing. Maybe Allah is not like a Delta Force saving an American guy who fell in the wilderness of Africa. Maybe that's not the way I should see Allah, God. Some people say God, some people say the universe, whatever you want to call it. You know, that entity. So, and I started like to study. I said, but Allah told me in Quran, the first verse in Quran, Iqra, read. First word in Quran, Iqra, read. And then I kept just reading. I discovered Americans are just regular people. They just very self-centered. They think that there is only America and the rest of the world. One time, this sergeant, she came to me and said, yeah, you are a nice guy. I want to bring you some music. I said, yeah, Arabic music. She brought me Bosnian music. I said, maybe you didn't understand me. She said, yeah, you said Arabic music. I said, yes. I said, this is Bosnian. She said, is there a difference? And I would say, for better word, that this was a very big insult to the Bosnian people, you know? And like that, so a lot of them have this, like, they think that the United Kingdom is threatened by the Sharia, that a lot of British people subscribe to the Sharia law, whatever Sharia law means. And these things. And that for the first time, I learned that Jesus Christ was born in Alabama, you know, and it's so much fun. You know, you cannot meet American people without falling in love with them. It's impossible, you know, just impossible, you know. And I had no grudge. God knows, I hold no grudge against them. You know, I never took anything personal, at least, you know, after the first few years. And I decided I forgave everyone, including torture, including people who kidnapped me. Wow. You know, I want them to have good life. No, absolutely. And that's really helped me a lot.
Yeah, and it's so amazing that you can actually do that. And I mean, as terrible as as kind of just awful, it's hard for me to even kind of talk about it. As awful as the experience sort of seems and was, obviously, it's pretty amazing that you kind of became this person that you're sort of able not only to forgive, but you're able to kind of take the experience and sort of make it into something special. You're able to kind of put it out there and put it out into the world and say, look, you can still love people despite all of these terrible things that they've done to you.
Look, you are, I would say, what you went through. That's what defines your life. You know, it's very hard, like, to compare any two people, because every human being behavior is as unique as their DNA. So, I was kidnapped on November 28th of 2001. And I was sent to Jordan for torture, because God forbid America doesn't torture people. And after 8 months, in total darkness, the CIA plane came to Jordan and took me. Of course, no briefing. I was handled just like a package. And then when I felt their hands cutting through my clothes with scissors everywhere and putting me in a diaper, it occurred to me at that moment, at least I thought, I wasn't going back to my family, you know. And then those images of, like, very horrible American prison that I saw in Germany, where people stay the rest of their life in very, at that moment, my life in less than a second ran through my head. And I start to regret stuff. So I tell you what I didn't regret. I didn't regret not being rich. I didn't regret not having slept with that or this girl. I didn't regret I didn't get to marry this girl. I didn't regret I didn't have houses. I didn't get this job or that. I regretted one thing. Why wasn't I nicer to people? Better to people? I want to be better. And I regret every bad word I said to anyone. You know? And I figured this is what would matter to me when I die. You know, and I decide I need to be good to people, because nothing else matters. Because we all, you are to that accurate statement you can say about anyone, you know, because it's a statement of facts. And, you know, this even matters. You don't have even to die, like, just think about yourself when you break up with someone after 1 year. The only thing you regret is the bad gesture, you know, you said or said bad words. Or, that's what you regret. You don't regret anything else, you know. That's why I'm very pensive, and very pensive because of what I went through. I try not to be, accept good to anyone. And if that cannot happen, I just shut up my mouth and try to go away.
Yeah, wow.
We have a saying, I mean, I know this is very common in all highly developed cultures, but we have a saying indeed, the prophet says, if you are a person of faith, say good things or say nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, essentially, what happens when you're saying bad things? It's like you're also creating bad things. Anytime you're also feeling bad about something or a regret or something like that, you're creating this negative feeling in your own body,
Yeah.
and somebody
Yes.
may somebody may think they're justified. They can rationalize how their narrative makes sense in all of this, but in the end, all you're doing essentially is creating harm.
Right.
And if you know this, right, then of course, it seems like the logical, and not even logical, just what feels right is to be good, to think good, to create good, to want good.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like also, I think, Mohamedou, from my understanding of what you've kind of created for yourself afterwards, it seems like for you, in not forgiving, kind of these people who have obviously harmed you and wronged you in such a serious way, you would have allowed it to kind of corrode your spirit, or you would have became in some way a kind of a more hateful or more angry person, and it doesn't seem like that's what you wanted to be.
I don't know. I mean, you cannot forget the pain and the suffering, but it's very important to me to move forward. I wish I had said this saying, but it's not my saying. Like this Canadian Lebanese woman said, I don't forgive you because you deserve. I don't forgive you because you asked for forgive. I want to move forward, Something like that. She says something like that. You can look it up. And this is a very good thing. This is exactly. This is not like, oh, we making peace. No, this is like I'm making peace single-handedly,
Right.
And I don't need your permission. I don't need anyone's permission. I have to be pure in heart. And you are a psychologist. I need to justify this. I need to justify this for myself, to convince myself. And I convince myself, absolutely. Because Lieutenant Richard Zuli from Chicago is the one who oversaw torture.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Zuli now is a very old man. There is no use for me in his suffering. I have no advantage in his suffering. I want him to be taken care of, healthcare wise, everything. I want him to be happy, because happy people, healthy people are less likely to harm other people, than angry people. And so I could benefit from that, So there is no benefit for me. That's people who committed crimes against me suffer.
That's so amazing. I mean, so one of the kind of final questions that we want to ask before we wrap up is, what was it like for you to write that letter to Joe Biden about closing Guantanamo Bay?
It felt good. It felt very empowering. And because I truly believe in Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden is a good guy. And I think Joe Biden suffered. He lost his wife. She was very young.
Yeah.
This is not something, easy to imagine, to bury your own son, And, going through that suffering. And so I hope he understands that, people in prison suffer a lot. Those people who are criminals who suffer, let alone people who are innocent.
Right.
20 years, a very long time for an innocent person. 1 year is a very long time. 1 day is a very long time for an innocent person. And I never understood, the pain that my innocent mother went through when her son was taken away from her. Not because they presented he is a criminal. She could say, oh, okay, that's something that painful, but I understand. And your mother, you are still her child, no matter how old you are. And I never understood this until I have my own son. I cannot imagine that the police knocks at my door and say, we're taking him away forever. This is not something I could imagine. And when you watch the movie, we shot this scene with my mother at our house where it happened. As she was praying, and I could see her from my rear view mirror until she faded away slowly as I turned right into the other street. And we never saw each other again, ever. That's all I know. I never get to bury her. I never get to do the last prayer. I never get to wash her, nothing. Yeah.
Well, and then, so what was it like for you to work on the movie and to actually see yourself on screen?
I mean, come on, being played by a very hot actor, that's good. I am putting him on my profile. When I decide to go to those dating sites, what they call it again? Tinder.
Yeah.
I put him as a profile.
That's great. That's wonderful. So, but what was it like actually? What was that?
Go ahead.
No, what was it like being on set and working with them?
Yeah, I this is like a work of art. And I kept to myself my opinion, so I only said anything when I was asked. So they asked me a lot about the details of Guantánamo Bay, how to reconstruct it, what people wore, how they talk, everything. And I coached him a little bit in the local dialect because he had some lines. Mm-hmm. That's it. I didn't do a lot, honestly. I was just enjoying like the set, and so meeting nice people, doing nothing, just watching.
I hear you.
I like that part at the, I don't think this is a spoiler, at the end where you're listening to Bob Dylan and singing along. That was cool. I was like, oh yeah.
I love Bob Dylan. Thank you so much. Actually, that was filmed without my knowledge.
It was a great scene. I mean, are you okay with it being out there?
I don't care. I'm a natural clown.
Yeah. I hear you. All right, Alan.
I think when you spend some time in prison, you become antisocial, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's amazing.
You don't care much, what society thinks, because when that dorsal slams shut behind you, you come to realization that you are not that important in the world, that life goes on without you,
Yeah.
I think that's true. But one of the things that's important is, I mean, I agree with you, right? There's also a saying, some people say, some people think, life doesn't have any meaning. They think, nihilists and all of this, right? Not that that's what you're saying, but what I'm trying to add here is, sometimes that could be true. Like there's no meaning, life goes on. But at the same time, what matters is the meaning that we give, right? And watching you in the movie, especially with the Bob Dylan scene, I actually, I like what you're saying, like as a joke, like it's like a clown, all of this. But realistically, I feel like that makes you very universal. it was cool. I was like, oh, that's the guy, cool, you know, like as a watcher of the movie. And then at the same time, it's like, oh, singing Bob Dylan, smiling, you know, it's very humanizing. Makes you, it's like there's a depth and universality that sort of is displayed there. And it's like you don't think about anything, like all these labels, all these rationalizations, all these narratives, whatever we were talking about earlier. So, but that's, I guess, my take. I bet some people have different takes. But,
no, what's really cool about, obviously, what's amazing about you, Mohamedou, is that when we're talking about, like, when we're looking at the story on the whole, it could have easily broken somebody down. So if we're looking for inspiration, for me in particular, obviously, where my work as a therapist and working with clients who've been through severe trauma, it's really kind of inspiring to be able to even kind of share your story and to say that, look at all of this, like, amazing and sort of amazingly terrible things that this human has been through, and look at how well he's come out at the other end. I mean, he's this wonderful, loving human. He's a great father. He's a great husband. And obviously he's still kind of a clown and can sort of laugh at himself and laugh at the world around him.
I mean, you need to, life's short, you know, you cannot like take everything serious, because you know what matters most when you spend 20 years, you know, in prison. Because I spent 20 years, 14 in Guantanamo, 1 year in outside Guantanamo, and about 5 years. So when you lose 20 years of your life, then you said, okay, I need to focus on what's important. What's important is your happiness.
Yeah.
You know, and people always like ask me, you know, one of the answer I give them, so how you survive? I say, when you are in a situation that you didn't choose, try to find the best seat possible. You know, just look around. No one wants to wait on the doctor for so long.
Yeah.
But you try to find a comfortable place, good seat, and some magazines to read. You know, that's what you should do everywhere. Just try to find the best seat instead of like panicking. Said, I need to go out, but you are not going out. So you need to find. And the best seat for me in life is what I to do. Like this guy, one time, I was in a very bad situation in Mauritania, very bad. You know, I was denied passport, everything. And this guy called me, called my family. He doesn't have my. I need to talk to Mohamedou. I told my nephew, he can tell you what he needs to tell me. He said, no, it's very important. He wants to talk to you. I told him, I have nothing important in life. He can tell you. He said, he wants to tell you. I said, I have no secret. Talk to him, tell him to tell you. He said, no, he only tell you if you don't take the phone, he doesn't tell you. I said, I'm not taking the phone. And either he tell you or he doesn't tell you. And everybody was shocked because of the lack of curiosity, you know, because I'm not about anything. And I guess I have much better instinct of the people I should give my time to. That's the point, actually.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot entice me. If I'm not interested in you, you cannot entice me. Absolutely not. You know.
Yeah.
I have very good instinct. What's important? You know, because 20 years is enough time to think about what is important in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Alan, any final questions for Mohamedou before we wrap up?
Oh, yes. If we wanted to follow you, follow your work, where could we find you?
Very easy. Please, you can find me on Twitter. You know, Mohamedou Ould. Already know that. Or you can find me Facebook. Like you just write Mohamedou Ould Slahi. It's written wrongly, Salahi. And I hope if you have like your internet site, I send it to you and can write it. like Facebook, Insta, like this.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we're also going to include links where to follow you. Oh, awesome.
Perfect.
Okay,
Yeah.
that works. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, when we post up the episode, we're just going to include links everywhere around, like for all of your handles and all of your obviously websites.
Yeah, so
Thank
thank
you,
you so much
brothers.
for doing this.
Thank you so much for coming on. This was such an amazing episode, man. Your life is really inspirational.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. This is really important to me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon, Mohamedou.
Thank you, brother. All right. Well, guys, if you want to follow us at Seize the Moment Podcast on Facebook and on Instagram, and at Seize_podcast on Twitter. Like, subscribe,
Hit the bell.
and yeah, get the book, the Guantánamo Diary, and watch the movie, The Mauritanian. I just recently saw it, and I got to tell you, it's
chilling.
It's chilling. It's dramatic. It's also very gripping, engaging.
Yeah.
If you like Benedict Cumberbatch is in there. It's cool. Good cast.
Jodie Foster's best role.
Jodie Foster as Nancy Hollander. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about the movie.
Yeah.
So guys, thanks again for watching, and see you next time.